Bungalow Sports Show. I am your host, Cole Rambo. You may know me from such podcasts as the Bungalow Chat Show and Stallion Radio and anything else I've done over the last 15 years, but today is our first day on Peak One Sports Network, and this is my first day hosting a show that actually has some kind of direction, which is fantastic. All my shows in the past have always been really just free-form conversation, but I'm really interested in getting focused on certain topics, and I kind of quit podcasting a couple months ago and was focusing on some other things, and then seeing Peak One Sports pop up and see these guys kind of putting together a little network of good shows and good content. It really inspired me to want to, maybe dabble in that a little bit. And I have some pretty interesting opinions on all things sports, but I'm going to do my best to entertain you and give you maybe some information that you won't get from other sports outlets. Let's see. Why am I doing this sports show? What are my qualifications? None. I grew up in the heyday of Sports Center, the 90s, the early 2000s, where there was a lot more comedy and levity infused into your sports. Didn't have to make it so serious all the time, and that's what I like to bring to the table. I keep an eye on all sports. Like I said, I've been a Sports Center addict since I was a baby. It was like the background noise of my childhood. If there's nothing else on, you put on Sports Center. If it's time to go to bed, you put on Sports Center. You wake up in the morning and eat your fucking Fruit Loops before school, you're watching Sports Center. And a lot of people aren't huge fans of ESPN these days, which whatever. I'm not here to talk about opinions on that kind of stuff. People tune into what they like, and if you like this, you like Sports Center, you like Barstool, whatever it is you like, I'm happy to be a part of it. Yeah, so I've kept an eye on obviously all the major sports here in America. My whole life I've been interested in all different kinds of sporting events and things like that. My main sports are NFL, NHL, UFC, not in that order. My first love was the NHL. My second love was mixed martial arts. And the NFL, although I've paid attention since I was a child, I didn't really fall in love with it until I started playing fantasy football about 15 years ago. And ever since then, it's given me a love for that sport and the ins and outs and the players and the stats and everything that goes along with fantasy football. I'll let you know what's going on with my team. I'm not going to give you guys any tips about what to do with your fantasy team because, as we all know, that whole thing it's a crapshoot, all right? And I don't want you blaming me for your bad fantasy team because my fantasy team is bad enough. But in saying that, it's fantasy football that kind of got me into the NFL. What else is good? I'm just trying to let you guys get to know me here for a little bit. What else? My favorite teams. All right, everybody's got their favorites. As I say, I follow everything, and I think anymore as I get older, for most sports and most teams, I'm more of a fan of players, individual players, than a team necessarily, except when that comes to the San Jose Sharks of the National Hockey League. I've been obsessed with them since their inception in 1991 and have followed them in almost every game they've been a part of since then. So that's just been a lifelong pursuit of disappointment, as you can imagine. I know there's plenty of sports franchises out there, plenty of fans who feel that way about their team, so hopefully we'll be able to relate on that. But other than the Sharks, my favorite sports team is my fantasy football team, Team Butt Punch. And I say that just to let you know that I am extremely unbiased when it comes to most sports. I mean, I love the Sharks so much, but I'm even unbiased in hockey because I realize how bad the Sharks are, how good the Sharks have been in the past, and just really shot below expectations. So I am not delusional about my team, therefore I can be really unbiased when it comes to your team and everybody else's team. So, but yeah, so that's my favorite stuff. We're going to be covering all of the major goings on around the sports world. Right? Recently, with Ashton, we're going to talk a little bit of draft. There was a few sport current events that I wanted to get in with Ashton, but again, I babble, and I haven't talked to that guy in a while, so I babbled, and then we ran out of time. So I'm just happy to be back in the studio. I'm happy to be a part of Peak One Sports. I know how important it is to kind of have a group of like-minded individuals that are kind of reaching towards the same goal, whether that's media success, whether that's just creating a good product and getting good content out there to the viewers, the listeners, what have you. And if you're watching this, listening to this right now, thank you very much. Tune into the other Peak One Sports. But that's me. That's me in a nutshell. Cole James Rambo, the host of the Bungalow Sports Show. I'm your new best buddy. We can talk about everything. I'm your best friend. Just put your head on my shoulder and tell me about all of your sports woes, and we'll talk about it. This first episode is it's an introduction. It's an introduction, okay? So without further ado, here is my talk with Ashton Nix from Peak One Sports. And it's him trying to get a word in edgewise while I just keep blabbing, blah, 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 blah. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome the first ever guest on the Bungalow Sports Show, Ashton Nix, the proprietor, the brains behind this new thing that I'm a part of. Within like the last 48 hours, we decided to do this thing. So I appreciate you giving me the chance to do this on Peak One Sports.
Yeah, man, this is it's an honor that you were so excited to do it. It feels like at first I was trying to convince people to do it.
Right.
And now it's like left and right, everyone's excited about it.
I tell you what is like, I've been, you were on one of my episodes of my podcast, the Bungalow Chat Show. And like, I've had some form of a podcast for 15 years almost now. Yeah. Right. So, but it's always been very free form. Back when I had like a network there, we did a hockey show once. That was the closest I ever did to that was a full on sports show, but it was just hockey focused. Cause that's all, that's what was my main sport at the time. Yeah. But it's like a different muscle to massage, right? Like, because I was sitting there prepping, and it's like I want to keep these shows to an hour or less, because it's just like the attention span is short. I want to be able to cut up pieces for social media, all the stuff to try to make it successful, for you guys, for me, for everything. You know what I mean? If it works for everybody, this is going to work. And that's why I'm happy to like team up, because I stopped doing the Bungalow Chat Show a couple months ago, not for any other reason than that, like, unless I'm talking about something specific or something that I feel the need to get nobody needs to know my opinions on shit, unless it's sports, unless it's music, one of my interests, something that isn't as serious. People take things really serious nowadays, and I don't want to be a part of it. So it's like sports is like the great thing that we can pretend like is serious, but it really has no, in the grand scheme of things, we can keep it lighthearted, but also have real strong opinions about it.
Yeah, I would join a couple other shows on another network as the Dallas Cowboys expert. They called me
correspondent.
Big name, yeah. Expert, whatever.
Well, that's what that's the beauty of sports. Is like in sports media, I should say, is that's me. Like I've never done really a specific show podcast, but like the reason I got into talk radio was because of guys like Jim Rome and people that I would just listen to on the job site when I was 20 years old. And I just listened to them have takes and have random people calling in with takes. And it's just like, oh, shit. Okay. So
You talk about sports, being pretend serious, like we're all serious about it. But like I said, I do a show and we did an NFC East roundtable, and there was a Giants guy and a Redskin or a Commanders guy and a Eagles guy. And man, we would talk trash on that show. Yeah. And then after it, we'd all be friends. Like, try to find a political show that you have. No,
never.
A liberal, a conservative, a libertarian, whatever.
They weren't friends beforehand. They weren't friends beforehand, but I see, like, and at my advanced age, like I play ice hockey every week. Right. And as almost a 40-year-old man, I can get out there and justify with two teams full of other men and women that get out there to take it as serious as we can for an hour. You know what I mean? Because that's what I tell my son, even at 8 years old playing soccer. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're the best or the worst when it comes to sports. If you're not trying your hardest, no matter what level you're at, there's no point for you to be out there. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of a bastion for just giving all your effort. Even and sports is the great divider. It separates people really well because the good ones separate from the bad ones, and the ones who just kind of like being there versus the ones who are competitive and
Yeah, the talented one versus non-talented, the
There's
ones who try versus not, the
you,
coachable ones
yeah,
versus
you
not.
can't fake it, right?
Yeah.
You can't fake it in sports, right? It's like
Yeah,
you,
being in sports, youth sports, and growing up and being athletics in high school, there's so much you gain from that, being
yeah,
part of a team, learning discipline, but
right,
none of it works if you're not committed to it.
yeah,
Not to get
and
on a big tangent, but
yeah,
it could really screw you up and make you a worse person if you're
of
just going to
course,
refuse to, you resent that type
right,
of leadership or being told what to do.
right. And that was like the story of my life, is just like anything that I'm gonna do, like I do it as best as I possibly can, right? I'll half-ass a lot of things until I don't. You know what I mean? It's like the things that I
Yeah.
care about, I don't half-ass. So it's like, and with sports, it in itself, like it is a competitive endeavor, right? There's a winner and loser in every single sport. Otherwise, it's not a sport, right? Like there's a
Yeah.
winner and a loser, and that doesn't mean you are a fucking loser. It just means this time you didn't win, right? But the
Yeah.
great thing about sports is you can go practice harder, learn different techniques, whatever it is that you're lacking, to go win against the same people next time, you know? And like,
Yeah. And sometimes you need to lose too. You
right,
see,
right. And
oh
that's,
man, we did a podcast on some of the worst draft picks of all time, and specifically Jamarcus Russell was that guy. And I just thought Jamarcus Russell is one of those guys. He's been so good his whole life. He's been the guy. No one's tried to teach him anything, or at
right.
least he
It
thought,
got
I
him
don't have
this
to learn
far.
this.
Right.
I'm so good. But when you get to the NFL and you don't watch film or practice as hard, it's like
Doesn't
sometimes
mean anything.
you need to get
This,
kicked in the nuts
that is
beforehand before you get to the NFL.
a great connector to something of a topic we'll talk about later, which also reminds me to fucking move on, because we could just sit here and talk about how cool sports
We
are.
could,
I just
man.
wanted to tell you that honestly, this is something I've been thinking about since before I stopped doing my old show. It's just with sports and with the way media is, it's like it's another one of those all in or not kind of a things, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
I didn't want to do a specific type show unless I could put enough behind it, you know what I mean? And you guys have got this thing kind of rolling. You've got the social media accounts rolling. You're already going with the promotion and and all that stuff like that. And I love, there's so many networks out there now that kind of do the same thing where they pull people under one umbrella and it kind of helps everybody grow, So that's
Yeah.
kind of what I was looking for. And then watching you guys over the last, I mean, it hasn't been too terribly long, but I've been following you on social media. So like seeing that you guys, oh shit, you guys had the same idea, except like, I don't really want to run this thing. I'd rather just make a show. And then, then it
Yeah.
was like a week of like, oh, I should hit them up and see if they want to do a show, and then you just randomly messaged me the other day and I was like, well, I guess it's time to go. So,
Yeah.
why don't you
You're not the
tell,
first person to tell me that, by the way.
well, it's
That I
kind
was
of
thinking about
inspiring.
doing something and I saw yours thing, and
Right.
it's great. It's why we do it.
And I have all this stuff here, and I love to talk, and I love sports, and it just seems like a shame not to
Yeah.
combine my clever quips with what I think about sports topics. But
Yeah.
why don't you just quickly tell everybody what Peak One is, and kind of like plug it, tell them what to expect, like what gave you this idea? What are you doing?
Well, going further back, we were talking about you've been doing a podcast on and off for 15 years. I've kind of been in the same arena with sports writing, online sports shows, calling football games, minor league soccer matches, all kinds of crap that I've been doing on the side for my whole life. So, working with a couple of podcasts, I had the honor to work with a different network, and I've been trying to add all this stuff up and do as much as I possibly can. And I was actually got a guy reached out to me about high school sports stuff and trying to build
Okay.
something in the DFW area. And that's where we are, Dallas Fort Worth.
Right.
And I talked to my brother about it, who's partnered. He's done just as much as I have in this arena in building Peak One Sports. But we talked about that and ultimately decided, man, that's just too much work. The amount to cover just in Dallas Fort Worth, high school sports or just football in general would be an undertaking.
Right,
He's like,
right. It's like a professional sport there when it comes to the amount
exactly,
of
like what you'd have
information.
to do to cover the teams. You couldn't
Right,
just pick a couple of teams. You'd have to have a team under you. And at this point,
right.
there wasn't money being invested really. I mean, not enough to, we weren't going to pay
No, just
anybody.
I've been in California my whole life, but from what I hear from people who've lived in Texas or just stories from people on podcasts, like there could be a sports center just for Texas high school football.
I mean, in
Like,
essence, there is a local, there are
right, I'd
actually a couple
imagine.
of local
I
shows,
imagine, but there's enough
high school
there,
sports spotlight. Yeah, every Friday night you can go watch that, and it's highlights of it's all across Texas. But yeah, they're
Nice.
actually, for the most part, is.
Right, right.
But he's like, you kind of have to have the passion to do that, and if you wanted to do that, you would have already started it because that's basically what you're doing. We'd be
Right,
under the
right.
umbrella of this other media company.
That's kind of
Uh,
like the best things that you do in life. Usually it's something that you were kind of already doing for free or for no other reason than you like
yeah,
doing it. So when you can kind of marry the things together is when you're successful. So you shouldn't just grasp at the high school football just because it's there. It's like, well, no, like you said, like I would have been doing that
exactly. Well,
already.
he said that, and we kind of had talked about the ups and or the positives and the negatives, pros and cons before we just ultimately decided this is not a good idea. But we were kind of getting excited. We're like, well, why don't we build something? Why don't we
Right,
just do,
right,
I have a side podcast, a sports page or sports page radio,
right.
which is on this network. We started doing a Saturday morning live show on YouTube
Nice.
called The Lead Off. The plug there. Go ahead, it's
Yeah,
on Big Foot Sports Network.
yeah.
As well as there's other people that are writing, doing podcasts, starting podcasts. There's a guy in Australia that's going to do a podcast on
Oh, that's fantastic.
rugby and cricket and trying to be more informational because that's really growing
Right,
in the United States. So
right.
try to explain rules, and then he's a NFL fan as well, and he has a book, and at
Right.
some point on some show somewhere we'll get into all that. But basically, it's exactly what you said. You're the third person that's told us that, I was already thinking about doing this, and that's weird that you called me,
Yeah, right, right.
type deal. And
Well,
so,
that just kind of, what do they call it? It's kind of kismet, even if you don't believe in that kind of things. Like-minded people that are kind of, heading in the same direction, usually kind of
yeah.
things like that tend to happen.
And so we didn't know the level that we wanted to grow this, but we thought, okay, we want to do more than a show. And we have a
Right.
show and a podcast, and we want to do some writing. I'm
Yeah.
like, do we want to build a whole network out of it? He's like, well, here are some people. Let's message them, see if they're interested. And if
Right.
they all are interested, we'll do it. And
Right.
that's what it was. This happened late March, not
Yeah.
long ago at all.
Right. Right. Right.
Maybe early March. Yeah.
And I'm telling you, and that's the thing is like I was already following you obviously since you were on my show back in the day when you guys were doing your old show, and like I said, just talking to you that day, you kind of realize, okay, like you're on the same wavelength. At the time I wasn't, I was just looking to interview podcasters of any type at the time, but then hearing and listening over that since that time, your guys' take on sports or like the kind of information that you're pushing out there. I love sports and entertainment mixed, but honestly, like your barstool type stuff, but like honestly, when
Yeah.
it comes to sports, I like it. I like a 70-30 split of 70 like legitimate sports talk and like 30% funny, like just because you're gonna have a funny take or something
Exactly.
silly
Yeah.
to say every once in a while.
You don't want to be a reporter,
But I don't want people
on
tuning
ESPN,
right.
just that has to tell stats, specifics, and kind of little funny quips. But you're so
Right.
structured and
Well,
non-biased, and I try to be unbiased as much as I can. But
right,
I'll
right.
mention I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm a
Of
this fan. I
course.
hate the Eagles.
No,
But
yeah.
I'm going to also report a little bit too.
Yeah, well, because
Talk
you're
about
also
legit.
not a psycho. Like there are psycho fans out there who can't separate, but it's like
As
you
a
can
Cowboys fan, I can tell you there are
right.
a lot of psycho Cowboys fans.
Well, your division particular.
Oh my god, Eagles and
uh,
Cowboys might, at least in football, might be
but
the possible worst fans.
right. So it's just it's
overall,
there. It's there, but like I have constantly my whole life I've been a fan of losers, right? My first favorite team was the San Jose Sharks. They're still my favorite team, but
Yep.
they're up until the last 5 years, they were the number one analyst pick to win the cup. The Sharks are going to go deep. Nobody cares about them because of their market, but they're going to get, and then they get the second round, third round. They get to the cup once. Constant disappointment. The reason, hockey became my main sport is because my dad's favorite teams were the Oakland A's. And after Canseco and McGuire, when I actually got older to where I wanted to pay attention, those guys happened when I was a little kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like sports fandom's different. And then the Raiders, right? So it's just all disappointment all the time. And like it pushed me into other sports. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it did, because it was just watching my dad be bummed out every Sunday was not like, why are we doing this to ourselves? You know what I mean? Like his only Raiders like article in the garage was Rich Gannon sitting on his butt handing the ball to a ref, and the headline said, "We are losers," right? And it's just like, what? I'm not doing it. So I didn't even pay attention to football until I started. My brother, I mean, I'm a Sports Center baby. You know what I mean? That's kind of why I like this type of stuff, is I grew up on the heyday of Sports Center and the late 80s, early 90s, early 2000s with Kenny Maynes and all those type of guys. And that just
coming home from school, watching Pardon the Interruption, Around the Horn, which those shows are still on, but it's just that's just what I and then you get into Sports Center, and that's all I ever watched. I mean, probably since I was 13, 14, that's just Sports Center and sports.
And it's like my bedtime story. You know what I mean? If at night when everybody's asleep, if there's nothing else that I specifically want to watch, I just put it on Sports Center and it just plays in the background of my life. But because of that, I'm always just been well-rounded on the sports that I pay attention to, because they give you a little bit of anything that's kind of important that day in sports. And that's kind of what I like. And that's still what I'm like, that kind of stuff got me into, Euro League soccer and Premier League and stuff like that, because when I was a kid, professional soccer was not a popular thing in the United States. It still isn't, arguably, but compared, it's way bigger now. But I would never be a Tottenham Hotspur fan if I didn't see it on Sports Center one afternoon randomly because somebody scored a bicycle kick or something when I was 9. You know what I mean? Like, so
exactly.
just things like that. And that's kind of like what I'm excited to be a part of it with you guys, kind of just putting that kind of content out there, because sports are statistics and it's betting and it's all this type of stuff, but it's more, there's a whole nother side to it, right? Like a more personal side to it. And I like to hear the personal take. So I don't care if people are biased. I kind of like that. You know what I mean? Because it's realistic, honestly.
And real takes.
Right.
That's what I mean. The real, not the Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless. Those are characters trying to pretend to be real.
They're being real by opinions. Literally just, trying to, they're just like TMZ now. They're just trying to say outrageous things.
Yeah, it's all about ratings. And no joke, this is about ratings. That's the point. We need people to watch, but there's a specific line, if I just want to be ridiculous and outrageous, there's other networks and other podcasts and other everything that you can go to.
We still got to build this thing to the point where somebody offers us money to be ridiculous and outrageous, and then we can make that decision. That would be a good problem to have. Right.
But we're talking a lot of money to sell out for that. But then again,
But that's what I've always been.
We can afford to be authentic right now.
I've been a fan of my own sports takes because I always know that I'm unbiased, because I hate my teams the worst at most points because I'm not the guy who has constant hope, especially when it's been, 30 years of watching this team relentlessly.
You know what I mean? True fans. You're not those guys that are Cowboys fans, Lakers fans, Yankees fans, and I wanted to say Canadians, Montreal Canadiens fans, but no, that's the Cowboys of the NHL.
Right.
I haven't won anything in forever. Maybe New York Rangers, Boston Bruins.
Right. And it's just, there's always going to, people give up on teams, and I can't blame people who give up on teams like the Sharks, I guess. Like, go ahead. That's fine. I just love hockey. Right. So I love football now too. You know what I mean? In a different way, because fantasy football brought me back in because I love statistics and I like gambling. But like, once I started paying attention to football because of fantasy football, then I started not paying attention to one team, paying attention to all the teams, and then kind of getting into it from a whole different angle than I ever had before, and like, and that's the beauty about sports, is like, I can come on here and I can talk about an angle of whatever sports topic of the day. You know what I mean? Like whether I want to, it's a professional take or a personal take or a funny take or whatever, and nobody's going to tune in trying to be entertained. I don't want that. I just want them to tune in because they like the way I talk about sports or whatever.
Or they hate the way you talk about it. So I'm fine with it. I bring on the haters. You know, when people are hating on you, that's when you know you're doing something right.
Okay.
When
so
people are complaining. But I'll finish up the Peak One Sports, the question. You know, it's basically just a big network of people who, sports fans, sports people who want to do podcast writing, anything you want to do in some sort of media,
right?
Bringing sports statistics, information, entertainment to, I get the world. You know, it's on the internet, it's worldwide, and the idea is everybody can be on guests on other people's shows. It's a network.
Perfect. Right.
I have one of your next guests, probably one of our Dallas Stars. He's our hockey insider, but he lives here in Dallas, so he does Dallas Star stuff. But if you look on social media, Adam Russell, he's been writing articles and making posts about NHL playoffs, all in general, not just Dallas. So and he might have a podcast coming up as well.
I love it. See, because that's the thing with me in sports is I love my Sharks, right? But the thing is with no championships, you know, and only one, you know, big pennant that we can actually hang our hats on. Like, I love players more, right? It's turned me into a lover of the player of the game, whatever sport it is. And like, I'm a huge Joe Pavelski fan. So even though I've hated the Dallas Stars as long as I can remember, I root for the Dallas Stars when the Sharks are not involved because Joe Pavelski is on that team now. And I love that guy. That guy was a great player for my team for a long time. That guy should have won a championship, should have had a lot more accolades than he had once he left, but he didn't. And now he's continuing, you know, a great career in another place. And I can put those kind of biases behind once my team is out of the picture, you know. So I would love to.
I hear what you're saying as a Texas Rangers fan.
Right. They go elsewhere and have greatness. Yeah. That's what I feel about the Sharks.
They go to the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Padres nowadays, and just,
they play so well for you that the entire league goes, "Oh shit, that guy is going to be
something." Let's give him $500 million.
Once he goes somewhere else, he's going to be something. You know what I mean? But I digress. So what are like the goal? What's the goal of this thing? Like, what, like, do you have a cap? Like, are you trying to have a show every day coming out? Like, what are you guys thinking about?
I don't know. We've kind of stopped looking for shows now. Mm-hmm. Not that we're not, I guess, if you want to call it, we're not hiring, not necessarily. Like if somebody has a show idea or they want to write or they want to do something,
feel free to pitch it.
Reach out to us. We'll talk about it. Yeah, we don't want to be the same thing over and over and over again.
Right. They might fire me after this episode. Like I don't even necessarily know how it's going to go. We'll see what happens when I got
we have very low standards. Don't worry. No, I'm just kidding.
The bar is not high yet.
No, we just want to be diverse. I mean, we got to a point where we had our very first 3 shows and we were like, man, we talked about it was NFL free agency is a big time and that's good. You know, we want everyone to cover everything. We don't want. Well, you talked about the Super Bowl, so we're not going to talk about the Super Bowl. It's a big event. But
that's the thing, like,
I was on those 3 shows as a guest on one, running another. I'm like, I felt like I talked about the exact same thing over. And I'm like, we need to diversify. Now we have a fantasy football podcast.
Right.
We're about to have a hockey podcast. We have this show, which has its little quirk to it. You're just going to talk random stuff. We like to have the lead off. That's kind of like our news broadcast, although it's live, but I mean, we're pretty
well. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure how this whole this first episode, this pilot, if you will turn out. But like that's the thing with me is like all those big sports, all the NFL news, all the MLB, all the NBA news and stuff. Like I follow it, right? I'm not as deep in as I am with hot. Like my 2 main things are the NHL and mixed martial arts. UFC obviously is the brand name, but like pretty much I have seen almost if it was streamable or on pay-per-view, I've seen almost every professional mixed martial arts fight for any major promotion since like 2007. I'm obsessed with it, right? Like, and I think it's I was a high school wrestler, and not that I have delusions, I just really understand the grappling side of it. And like when I first started watching it, that was the main thing. It was like, holy shit, somebody's actually showing people that you can fuck people up without having to throw punches and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, because it was like something I knew from when I was a kid, and then as it got popular and grown and turned into what it is now, like again, I don't let things go once I'm in. Once I'm in on something, like now that I have all this knowledge, how can I let it go? You know what I mean? And I'm not an old grandpa who thinks Chuck Liddell can beat anybody. It's like, no, Chuck Liddell would get fucking smoked in his prime by any any top 10 light heavyweight today. You know what I mean? So I'm the same way with all sports, as I'm also a progressive type thinker of like, yes, guys were great, but now in a sport, that sports are evolving so quickly, like the athleticness and just the human body almost is like morphing in weird ways with football players and their size and their speed, and like
they're learning different ways to do different things, and they're faster, stronger, bigger,
and I love
better. And it doesn't have to be a debate that, well, LeBron James is more athletic than Michael Jordan. He's better. I'm like, just stop trying to. There's no set of information.
There can be
bring a Jordan hater or a LeBron hater and make them change their mind. So there's no point. Yeah, it's a fun debate, but
100%. And that's what makes sports fun, is because people can come up with a good take to argue for either one of those things on most things in sports, right? I mean, other than like, Aaron Hernandez or whatever, like I don't know. I could argue for Aaron maybe if I had to, like, but it's just like, it's one of those things where there's usually a cut and dry, it's like you're on one side or you're on the other. And I love that, because depending on what way you look at it. And that's the thing with like the GOAT conversation in anything, is like in the UFC, I love it because they have no choice but to have many GOATs, because there's different weight classes, guys who would never ever fight each other, right? So then they have this made up thing called pound for pound, where it's like, if this little tiny guy weighed 215 pounds, like, it's just like, yeah, but that's, why talk about that? Because that would never happen. Let's talk about it as if they're separate athletes and separate, kind of a thing. So it kind of clears it up, where it's like, it's okay to have this Michael and LeBron can both be the best. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, there's no reason to talk about who would beat who, because the game has transitioned.
Now, if Michael Jordan was born in 1990 or 1989, and he had the advantages that some players now do,
maybe he would be better than he was.
10 times better. Yeah. That's just how it works. When you grow up with virtually any NBA game on, you can watch nowadays.
Right. Well, and just like
until it was Magic and Bird,
right? And
we have games like that, except for the NBA Finals on TV all the time.
And just in like children's sports, the competitiveness has gotten so high, and the bar has been risen so high, that to be a child athlete when Michael Jordan was a kid is a much different thing from when LeBron was a kid, is a much different thing to now. You know what I mean? So having that development as a child in a certain way totally changes the argument too.
Having summer tournaments, having different special leagues, and
the coaches, the training,
you can play all year around any sport if you.
All right, let's see. I knew I just gonna just talk and talk. It's all right. Sorry, I keep looking at my clock because I'm really trying to be professional here. So before I kick you out of here, I'm trying to keep. Like I told you, I'm trying to keep my segments. It's probably gonna be like a 20 segment thing. We'll see how this ends up.
Just rapid fire.
Let's rapid fire. Something that this is going to be our first episode. It's going to come out on May 1st sometime. So the draft is over. Everybody's going to be covering this shit. I don't want to go over too much of the draft, obviously, because it's at this point, everybody's talked about it ad nauseum, but there's a few little interesting things about the quarterback class of this year. And everybody's been talking about these guys and reasons why they went where they went. But let's just go down. I've got 5 of them on my list because it was the 5 quarterbacks that anybody even talked about, right? We have obviously Bryce Young, Alabama, went first to the Panthers. CJ Stroud, Ohio State, went second to the Texans. Anthony Richardson from Florida went fourth to the Colts. Will Levis went 33. Interesting number there, right? 33 is usually the first pick in the second day.
Yeah.
This is the second, because the Dolphins did not have a first round pick. So let history show Will Levis does not even get credit for being the first pick in the second round of the draft. He is the second pick. All right. He is 33 in the history books, but 34 in our hearts. Okay. People remember that.
And real side quick too, you have Mr. Irrelevant is normally, 262 or something,
right,
or whatever it is, but this year it's going to be one less,
right? Exactly. And and then the last one I put on here at number 68, he was a third rounder, but Hendon Hooker, not that he's going to be something great, but I like his name more than I can say. He had a couple good weeks there this year, you know what I mean? And then he got hurt, I believe, that Tennessee. But he is a Detroit Lion. Anything, I don't know. I feel like every year I get less and less wowed by the quarterback class, and I think it's Anthony Richardson put together I would say my take on Will Levis. Let's just go there because we were running out of time. All right, my take on the whole Will Levis thing is he had a similar trajectory that his new Titan teammate had, which is Malik Willis, who kind of can't come out of nowhere to be said that they're going to be a top pick and then fall way down, right? And I think that probably for different reasons, but it's weird that the Titans kind of did that. They kind of did that with 2 quarterback picks in a row. With Malik Willis, it was that same thing. There was like all this build up before the draft of like, oh, this guy, and then he falls because people know more than the TV wants to tell us. You know what I mean? Andy, you're in front of the camera. Sorry. And then you have
how the sausage is made, people.
Yeah. We have Will Levis, who kind of the same thing, right? People obviously talked about him during the year, but right before the draft, he had these just a lot of people getting behind him. Oh, he's going to be top 5, whatever. Then he falls, right? And I just see the same type of thing happening with him specifically. I have this little thing that I like to have. It's like the cockiness meter. Okay, like I'm one of the guys who says like, oh, I like my players with a little bit of arrogance, a little bit of cockiness, but not really. If you look at the history of these quarterbacks that have that little tinge of arrogance that everybody loves so much pre-draft, you've got Josh Rosen, Baker Mayfield, Johnny Football, a lot of guys who obviously definitely have talent, but haven't made it because maybe they are a little too full of themselves and aren't. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes is a humble guy. He is a guy who is the best quarterback in the league, but I guarantee you, if one of the people in that Kansas City building has something constructive to tell him, he takes it in all ears, right? Because he's always trying to make himself better. These guys who come out and just get this weird artificial pre-draft push, then they've got giant guns and they can throw the ball 1,000,000 yards. And when I said you made a nice connector earlier in the show to Jamarcus Russell, Will Levis is another gentleman who has a nice tape of him throwing it through from his knees through the uprights. You know what I mean? It's like Jamarcus Russell was one of the first guys to do that, like, and have it be like a thing for the draft. And it's just like, but arm strength isn't everything. And when are you ever throwing it from your knees? Can you hit a receiver in the hands? It's stuff like that where these guys get pumped up. And then I think a guy like Will Levis is already, a little arrogant, I guess you would say. I don't know the guy, but just from what he puts on. And then he ends up going to a team that picked another guy who dropped and then dropped the ball when they actually had to put him in. Sorry. What do you think?
I think there's a lot that can go into it. For one, I think just about every player or athlete who plays professional sports is arrogant in some way, because you kind of have to have that competitive nature to make it that far. You can't only get so far.
I just think there's a difference with thinking I'm already so good. Why do I need to listen?
At least hide it to an extent. At least pretend. Do it's like Dak Prescott. I have no idea what his personality is. He doesn't give you anything. You say it sounds like the best. He says exactly what he needs to say. The most boring answers. He was on an interview here locally, and they're like, "Okay, well, how do you?" Like, I'm not going to give you any information. How would you? I'm going to say, here's a team, and you tell him, and it sounds like every interview he's ever had, he's like, yeah, they're real talented, and it's like you can't even believe him anymore. But it's little things that go like, I think Will Levis will succeed to some extent because in college he didn't have all the talent around him. He succeeded with barely any offensive line. He played SEC defenses. Now, I don't think that means he's going to be one of the best players to ever play a game. He may not. I fully believe that players like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best. He didn't win a lot of championships, but no matter where they go, what they went through, at some point they're going to rise to the top. Right. They're going to be the cream of the crop some way, They say, well, Tom Brady, if Drew Bledsoe never got hurt, like, well, he may have been on a different team. I think he still makes it. But there are players that are on the edge that may be way above average players, that things like, if Will Levis was drafted number 2 overall by the Texans, knowing that the Texans aren't shit right now. Nothing against them. No offense. I don't hate the Texans. They don't have a very talented roster.
Right.
And that's why a lot of quarterbacks, when they drop, it behooves them for that because they go on a decent team. The Titans have a decent roster. They nearly made the playoffs.
No, 100%. See, but that's the thing is like he's definitely going to get a chance. You know what I mean? Because of the team he's on, because that roster is a good roster. It's just the quarterback position that is iffy for him at the moment. You know what I mean? Like that roster has been there for 3 years and they've just had interesting quarterback instances, you know?
Yeah. And I think like Blake Bortles, David Carr, players put in that situation, I think they got screwed. I wouldn't say they were going to be Hall of Famers if they would have been put in better situations, but you can't say that they would.
They got to give him a little bit of a come up, you know. That's why I think Jordan Love. We'll see. We'll actually get to see because he's only got partial chances here and there, game here and there, little spurts here and there. But it's like now he's been there in the building for 3 years. He doesn't have the new job jitters of like how do I adjust my life to being a professional athlete? He's been doing it for 3 years.
The same with I have the same feeling with Trey Lance. Right. I mean, that may be the 49ers may have the best overall roster in football, minus who the hell is their quarterback. Right. Now there may be pressure there that they have. Brock Purdy could be in there.
Right. But hopefully that's just a healthy competition because I think both those guys could possibly do it. It's just like repetition, you know?
Yeah, and Trey Lance just like he's been in it, and a lot of times it's a new city, a new building, a new all this, and you got to play in the NFL. Well, Trey Lance, he's been an employee for the 49ers for a couple of years. And he just has to stay healthy.
And that's a piece of like professional sports I don't think people put enough stock into when they're talking about players individually is like where it is, what it is, how new it is. It's the same as if you had to move to a new city. Like just because they have a different job that makes a ton of money, it's like they're still going to a new place, a new house, a new neighbor, a new this, a new that. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff plays into it.
There's so much. Yeah, I'm real big into study motivational stuff, and like sometimes when you try something, you can go completely wrong. But now it's like, okay, you went to that whatever meeting or whatever group you wanted to bowling, Toastmasters, whatever. Right. And completely bond, but hey, you drove there, you know where it's at, you know where to park, you know where to go in and who to see. That's half of the stress right there.
Oh yeah,
learning that stuff. Now the next time you don't have to worry about all that. You just have to worry about being there.
Exactly.
You have to worry about
putting all that other stuff. Yeah, all that other stuff having it be on autopilot. It's like
learning the players around you in training camp, learning their names is a difficult part, knowing hey, that's whoever. Once you start the season, that's not a big deal. But now you're worrying about like, man, I probably should know his name right now. I can't.
Well, and
I can't say it. I can't pretend I don't know his name. You know,
people forget. It's like you're on a roster with 50 people, and then it's just like if you worked in one room with 50 people, how easy would that be? To get along with all 50 of those people. It's like, or let's say half, you got offense, defense, whatever. It's like 25 people.
But even in training camp and preseason, you're talking double that.
Right.
And
exactly.
You don't even know if should I even go to the trouble to learn this guy's name because he may not be on the roster next week.
And that's what I just think about. Whatever you do for a job out there, people, if there was 25 people sitting there had their own idea of how to do it, or maybe they were kind of with you, but then one little thing they wanted to do. Think about how hard that would be to get to your goal. You know what I mean?
2 million people criticizing you on social media,
watching your every
saying,
move.
Hey, fire Dave or bench Dave. Let's
it's like Ashton. He did it this way, but I think Cole's way was better. There's a whole show dedicated to that.
Oh man, that's something else I need to worry about now because I have different shows on here. Before it was just my podcast. You either liked it or you love it. Now I have all these comparisons.
Well, thank you so much.
They're gonna say put Cole in the lead off. Ashton sucks.
I don't want it. But we're about to get shut off here in a minute. Thank you so much, dude, for coming on at short notice. I will put something together. We'll have an episode out tomorrow, May 1st.
And what time is that? We can post at the same time every Monday. Just go ahead and say it.
Let's not do it yet. We'll say that time next week. Once I figure out how long it takes me to edit it. But cool, man. Thank you so much.
Plan. Yeah, awesome, man. This was fun. I'd love to do it again.
All right, there it was. Now, like I said, I've done podcasting for a very long time, but a lot of that has been free form, and a lot of that has been alone, by myself, or with people who don't have a lot to say. So I get used to just talking and talking and talking, and I did that a lot in that interview. So Ashton, thank you for joining me. Sorry I talked so much. We didn't hit the points all the points I wanted to hit. We got to get him back in here soon so we can kind of finish that interview. But I'm just getting the ball rolling here, people. I'm a momentum type guy. Once you get me in a thought process and once we get a conversation going, it's really hard for me to stop the train and let you fucking get a word in edgewise. But I'm working on it. Maybe I need to take some classes, some professional broadcasting classes is what I need to get my interview skills down. But let's finish up this show strong. First show, let's get it in the books. Next, we're going to go to something we're going to be doing every episode, and that is weekly picks. This is going to be 4 picks, random. It's just the games or competitions I feel the most interesting in the upcoming week. I think as the show goes on, I might be, starting to attach maybe some betting odds and different things to these picks. But until we kind of get the format of this show down and kind of what the do's and don'ts and what I want to do and what makes it the best, we're just gonna make some picks. So this week's picks, we've got Sixers Celtics game 1. All right, and that, if you're, depending on when you're watching this, the game might be over already, but this show is going to come out before that game starts on Monday. And we got Sixers Celtics game 1. Now, this game is going to be an interesting one. They're two just rabid fan bases, and they both had, the Sixers had an easier time in the first round. The Celtics, They battled hard, but now we've got the second round game. That people were looking forward to that second round matchup, Sixers Celtics, and now we got it. Game 1, I think this one's going. It's hard to say if Joel Embiid plays or not, but I'm going Celtics. I'm going Celtics for game 1. Not saying the Celtics are gonna blow this series out at all. I think it's going to be a pretty closely contested series. But for this week's picks, we're going game 1. Celtics are going to beat the Sixers. To keep it in the basketball realm, we got Heat Knicks game 2, and this is another one. With the Heat, are the first play-in team ever to win a playoff series, so that's pretty impressive. So they kind of got that Cinderella thing going for them. The Knicks also, they weren't a play-in team, but the Knicks have just, they like to think that they're a team that has a tradition of winning, but they really don't. Probably anybody listening to this or watching this show right now probably doesn't remember a time when the Knicks were good at basketball. So kind of makes you want to go for him a little bit. I just think Jimmy Butler is one of those players that he makes all the difference in the world no matter what team he's on. Sometimes I feel like he plays better on a team with a little weaker roster than when he gets on a team with superstars. I think he's just one of those guys who kind of likes to carry the burden of it's kind of on your back right now. And Jimmy Butler is one of those guys who can handle it. He fucking dropped, 60 points? Some crazy shit. And it's just, I got to go with the Heat on this one. I got to think the Heat are going to take control of this series. The Knicks, I just don't think they're quite there yet. And also, with Spoelstra, the Heat might have the best coach in the NBA right now. I don't know. Maybe. But, hey. Not a big basketball guy, but I do pay attention. Now we get to my bread and butter. We've got Devils, Rangers, NHL playoffs, game 7, big cross-the-water rivalry. And the Blue Shirts, the Rangers, they've just had years and years of high expectations. Their roster is nuts. And it's just... hockey's hard. Understatement of the year, right? I mean, all professional sports are hard, but hockey, especially when you get to the playoffs, the way the series go, how hard grinding of a fucking sport it is. You get a lot of upsets in this NHL playoffs. We've had our fair share. You just had literally statistically the best team in NHL history, the most wins in a season. The Boston Bruins just got taken out. You know what I mean? They just got taken out by the Florida Panthers. And I know that hurts for the Boston fans out there, but you can go suck it because you've got the Celtics that you can go root for now. So go Panthers. But and that sends the Panthers up to Toronto, and I'm really on Toronto's jock right now. I want them to get over the hump. But to our pick, Devils v Rangers, I'm going to do it. I'm picking the Devils to close this series out. And we're going to have a second round full of underdogs and teams that shouldn't be there. And I love that. I love parity. And seeing how my team sucks ass, and it's going to be a long time till we're back in cup contention. I like spoiling it for all the good teams out there. So it's like, oh great, you won more games in a season than any other team in NHL history, Boston. Oh, good for you. Wham! You're done. First round, you're done to the Panthers. Eat it. Bruins. You should have picked an adult bear, not a baby bear for your mascot, isn't it? It's like Bruins a baby bear, right? Bunch of babies. You just got your babies, your little bear cubs just got chewed up by a panther. I mean, that's what happens in how it happens in the wild. That's what happens on the ice. So yeah, we're going Devils on that one. And then for my fourth pick, we're going to dive into my second favorite sport, and that is mixed martial arts. I won't specifically only be talking about the UFC, although casual fans of mixed martial arts probably only pay attention to the UFC, and that's fine. I'm not one of these purists who are like, oh, what? You don't watch ONE FC? What the fuck is wrong with you? I'm not that guy, all right? You watch, you tune in, good. It's good for the sport. Watch what you can. But there are a few higher level organizations that do take precedent as far as like the casual fan and just reporting sports in general. So, it's going to be a lot of UFC talking this weekend. We got a real big fight coming up. We got the UFC Bantamweight Championship between current champion Aljamain Sterling, former champ Henry Cejudo, who's, up until taking this fight was retired, 2-division champ. He was the flyweight and the bantamweight champ when he retired. He's an Olympic wrestler, fantastic fighter, one of the best small weight guys of all time. But Aljamain Sterling is an absolute beast. He's an animal. The guy does it everywhere. He'll stand up with you, and he's got a little, his striking's not gonna knock your fucking hair back, but it's going to keep you on your toes, and then he's probably going to get on your back, and he's going to fucking strangle you. Can he do that to Henry Cejudo? I don't know. Henry's got that wrestling background. He's a master grappler. Maybe not in jiu-jitsu specifically, but this is going to be kind of like this fight is one of those things where it happens where you got two grappling-based fighters. One guy's really good at jiu-jitsu. One guy's really good at wrestling. They're both halfway decent at striking, so they're going to go out there, and they're either going to stand up the whole time, because one's going to defend a takedown so he doesn't get tapped out. One's going to defend a takedown so he doesn't get held down and ragdolled. So they might just end up standing the whole time and having a mediocre kickboxing match. Or we might see holes in somebody's game. We might see that one person shines more than the other one in places where we didn't think they would. This is just going to be a fantastic fight. I really encourage people to watch these lower weight fights. These guys need the eyeballs. Everybody likes heavyweights and the bigger weights and things like that, and historically those have always been the best fighters, but that's just not the case anymore. Mixed martial arts, I know boxing, we've always had lighter weight guys. We've had De La Hoya and Mayweather and a lot of lighter weight guys who have gone big places and become part of the zeitgeist of society as sportsmen, as lighter weight guys. But the UFC specifically with their lighter weights has had a hard time getting eyeballs on these guys, and some of these guys are the most skilled out there. Like, you go to some of these bigger guys, they've got heavy hands, and yeah, they can knock you to the fucking moon, but the technical stuff isn't there. And if you really watch if you want to get into mixed martial arts as a sport, pay attention to the ground fighting, pay attention to the dirty boxing up against the cage, and the small movements and positioning and thing like that. And when you're 135 pounds, you're both fast as shit. You both have knockout power. You both have submissions. You both had everything. I see this fight. This is going to be one of the best bantamweight fights in a long time. Maybe on the Mount Rushmore of best fights. Like, we'll find out. And we're going to find out on Saturday. And I think that Aljamain Sterling is going to take this thing home. I know a lot of people are like, well, Henry Cejudo, he beat Demetrius Johnson, who was arguably the best ever in that weight class. He goes up, he takes out a depleted, or no, he didn't go up. He fought TJ Dillashaw at 25, and then he went up and won the bantamweight title, and then he retired. He's been retired for a couple years now, and who knows where he's at. He's been coaching, not the same as training, but maybe he's been training too. One of those ultra competitive guys that I don't think would actually put himself in a fight unless he was ready for a fucking fight. So it's going to be I could be totally wrong here, and I think it's going to be a great fight, but I think Aljamain Sterling is just in his prime right now. He's been active. He's been fighting some of the toughest. He's been fighting Peter Yan. He's been fighting a lot of the guys that would, people said would give Cejudo a run for his money if he was still in the division. So, yeah, those are my picks. 4 picks of the week. We got Celtics over Sixers, game 1. Heat over Knicks, game 2. Devils over Rangers, game 7. Aljamain Sterling over Henry Cejudo for the UFC Bantamweight Championship. So mark all those down. Take little guesses with me. See, I'm gonna keep score for myself, so I'll let you know every week how I did the last week on the picks, because it's always funny when I come in here and it'll just be a big offer, because that happens a lot. Don't do a lot of sports betting anymore because of that. Because I love a sport. I bet most of my sports betting was done on mixed martial arts, and is a very, very unpredictable sport. So not good for the pocketbook. But anyways, hopefully you guys are following along with those picks. All right, before we get out of here, I want to do a little thing at the end of all the shows, and we're just going to do the shout-outs. And the shout-outs are going to be for athletes or people around athletics who didn't quite make the headlines this week, but definitely deserve a shout-out. And mine are both combat sports related this week. First was, if you're a fan of the UFC, they're putting on a lot of shows lately. Some of them are free, some of them are pay-per-view. Some of them are a little more lackluster than others, don't have the name power, but I want to give a shout out to the winner of the main event of this last weekend's UFC. It was a ESPN Plus event, and that's Song Yadong. Song Yadong TKO'd Ricky Simone in the main event last Saturday. And these are some more small guys. These are 135 pounders. So they're not getting a lot of the fanfare and everything. And going into this fight, I had Ricky Simone. He's a mullet bad boy. He rocks the mullet like nobody's business. He's been doing it since before it was cool. Ricky Simone just seems like a good guy, good, well-rounded fighter. Just one of those guys who kind of inches his way to the top, and then maybe when he gets to the cream of the crop, he gets knocked back down a little bit before he gets to that title shot. Song Yadong is just on his way up, and unfortunately for Ricky Simone, he played gatekeeper, and the gatekeeper got trounced. It was a good fight up until the TKO, and shout out Song Yadong for, putting a W up over the weekend, even if nobody was watching. Another shout out is going to go to former UFC fighter, current bare knuckle Fighting Championship fighter Mike Platinum Perry. Mike Perry is one of those guys who, I was a fan of him in the UFC. He was really just to fucking bite down on your mouthpiece and start banging dudes, or banging with dudes. He wanted to get out there and get in a dogfight, and it was either he was gonna take your head off, or you were gonna take him down and beat him. Ever since he left the UFC, he found a home in bare knuckle fighting, and it's been a landing place for a lot of MMA fighters who have kind of lost their fastball per se in the UFC or in mixed martial arts. Because that's the thing is in mixed martial arts, because you have so many different disciplines that you can pull off in a fight. The technique starts to wane as you get older. The one thing that never really goes, the power doesn't go. But the speed, the takedown defense, the grappling, all that stuff. So bare knuckle is kind of a good spot where it's just stand up. You don't even have to worry about kicks. We're just boxing here. But then you take away those gloves, and then it adds a whole nother wrinkle to the sport of like somebody who's, I'll just go in there, I can take a jab. It's like, yeah, but that jab might cut your fucking forehead open because his knuckles bounce off your fucking eyelid. And then, then you're screwed. So, even though it's a little barbaric, I'm happy that a lot of combat sports athletes kind of have different places to go and make money, and the popularity of those things are growing, so they're able to make a decent paycheck and kind of keep their careers going. And Mike Perry, I want to say he's 4-0 since he's left the UFC. He's 4-0 in bare knuckle. And this last Saturday night, he TKO'd Luke Rockhold, former UFC middleweight champion, who's no joke in the stand-up, you know what I mean? And he worked him over, and his experience in the bare-knuckle arena really, really helped him out there, because even though Luke Rockhold, arguably more talented in the combat sports area than Mike Perry, it was his first bare-knuckle fight. It was his first experience dealing with that situation. And when you got an absolute dog like Mike Perry coming at you, just wanting to fucking slice you up and put you on the canvas, that's exactly what happened. He didn't slice him up, but he took these knuckles right here and he put them right through Luke Rockhold's fucking front teeth and knocked his fucking teeth back, and the towel was thusly thrown in, because I'm pretty sure your mouthpiece don't fit when your teeth are fucking moved all over the place. So that's it. Shout out Mike Perry. Shout out Song Yadong. Shout out Ashton Nix. Shout out Peak One Sports Network. Thank you guys. This show is just going to get better and better and more streamlined as we go. This was my pilot episode, and I hope you can understand that. But until next week, I'm Cole. This is the Bungalow Sports Show, and we'll talk to you next time.